What a year it was for gaming last year, huh? I mean, literally Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate 3 were up for Game of the Year, and both are some of my new favorite games of all time. I already did a Tears of the Kingdom as Pokemon video, so what about a Baldur's Gate 3 as Pokemon video? Now, I would have done this sooner, but I wanted to beat the whole game first, just to make sure I fully grasped all the characters, at least how I played them. And I gotta tell you, it took like 3 or 4 half to 3/4 playthroughs to get here. And boy am I glad I got to complete the whole game. A few large globules of tears were shed at the end of that. I want to stress that you should definitely play this game. There's a reason why it won Game of the Year, and that there may be a few spoilers in the video. Tried my hardest to avoid major spoilers, except maybe 1 or 2 characters, but I'll warn you beforehand on them. I did a Pokemon and a team for each Origin character, as well as Dark Urge, but didn't do other characters who join your party, such as Halcyon and the like. Maybe another video later for them, but for now, let's get straight into the most baby girl of baby girl characters, Astarion.
What in the sweet hells were you thinking, activating that lance? I was right there! Gods! Do you have any idea how much that hurt?
Oh, Neil Newborn absolutely just astounded in this role. They deserve that Best Voice Actor award for sure. I mean, every voice for the Origin characters deserve an award, but Astarion is just a next level voice. Here you go, Neil Newborn. I also give you the Fafo award for making me very teary at the end of the game. Astarion starts out so prickly, in fact he stays quite prickly through most of the game, but what a fantastic character, and while making him a goose as a Pokemon for the Goostarian joke would be quite funny, I thought a bat would be great, if even a bit stereotypical, but come on. I love the idea of this very flamboyant bat Pokemon that has this almost humanoid energy to it, maybe even having bladed wings for stabbing. The biggest and silliest thing I had in my head for this design was keeping Astarion's hair on the design, making it very much obvious who the character is, but honestly the hairstyle for the Origin characters are kind of iconic and do sneak their way into almost every design here save for one. Although this Pokemon would be rather roguish, I did a bit of a silly thing in my game and made Astarion a strength-based monk, and honestly it kinda slapped, pun intended. Seeing Astarion do kung fu moves was such a good moment the first time it happened, but even still, roguish charm and all bled into the Pokemon itself, even having some fur ruffles and the coloration making it look like he's wearing some fancier armor or just a roughly doublet or something like that. I'm also trying a bit of a new deck style for certain projects like this one, so tell me what you think of it. Fangwin, the Bloodsucker Pokemon, a dark and flying type. During the night, be cautious of humans leading you down dark alleyways without speaking. It may just be a Fangwin looking for their next meal. Fangwin spend much of their time in cities hiding in sewers during the day, then at night coming out to the streets above to feast on blood from any source they can get. Whether people or Pokemon, it isn't picky. Trained Fangwin are able to control this urge and can be taught to only feast on specific things. A single Fangwin can control entire gangs of smaller Fangwin to do their bidding. These boss Fangwin are usually found living in abandoned houses and castles. Fangwin have the ability Sniper and Super Lock. Alright, let's do a team for Astarion, starting with Fangwin. Then we give him sort of a team of sassy dark Pokemon. Starting with Alolan Persian, I mean, look at it, it's totally Astarion. A bit silly, a lot sassy, and it's got an aggressive mean streak. Next we have Crobat. I like the idea of Astarion getting close to a Zubat in Cazador's mansion and becoming good friends evolving into Crobat eventually. Then we have Umbreon, a good nighttime moon Pokemon. Then Gliscor, it's a fanged bat scorpion thing, it works pretty well. And to round it all out, I think Meowscarada, it just feels so Astarion, has that sort of roguish thief energy to it as well.
I may be a hater and a gatekeeper, but I'm also God's favorite princess and the most interesting girl in the world.
The hardest thing was to figure out what animal I'd make Shadowheart. I mean, light and shadow character who's connected to the moon. Through some research and some ideas from the internet, I chose a Harlequin rabbit. Not only are rabbits connected to the moon, but Harlequin rabbits have a distinct black and white pattern to them. I'm not going to give them a full half and half look, but more of a mix of black and white. Shadowheart is my girl and is such a wonderful character growth, if you go the right path with her anyway. I ended up switching her to Life Cleric domain instead of Trickster, and man was that a good choice, the healing was so much better. If only she could actually hit with her offensive spells, but I still love you, baby. My idea for the Pokemon, however, was sort of a bipedal rabbit Pokemon covered in black and white fur as a stand-in for the classic Shadowheart armor. I thought it would be fun if her headpiece and hair was sort of a part of the rabbit ears hanging down in a kind of lop rabbit sense in big bubble ears. I feel like this Pokemon would have a pre-evolved form of some kind, like a little baby one that is maybe only a single color. For typing, I struggled a bit. I definitely want a dark type, but the secondary typing is what threw me. Psychic is usually associated with sort of the cosmic and the moon and all that, but lately Fairy is a bit more connected to that, especially with Moonblast, so I chose Fairy as the second typing. Shaloon, the worship Pokemon, a dark and fairy type. Shaloon are well known for being worshipped by two different religions. Their distinct black and white pattern gave rise to both seeing it as a sign of fortune. Shaloon in the wild are quite intelligent, setting up dens in areas where many Pokemon live and helping with healing. In return, the Pokemon bring offerings of various fruits and flowers to assist in healing. The strength of a Shaloon is heightened during the night, where the white in their fur will glow brilliantly. This is just one of many reasons people see Shaloon as an envoy of the gods. Shaloon have the abilities Rivalry and Own Tempo. Let's make a team for Shadowheart. Without giving them a whole bunch of moon-based legendaries, let's start with Shaloon, and then straight away let's just give them a Lunatone. I'm also going to include Trevenant as a Lady Shara's about darkness and loss and the whole forest scene for Shadowheart. Let's chuck in Clefable, a Pokemon from the stars, another Shar Pokemon in Houndstone, and I'm going to include one legendary in Lunala. It's a good mix of the moon and darkness as well.
Stinky.
What about a Pokemon based on Mama K? This one was the first I made as the idea just smashed into my brain like a true barbarian should. Or should I say, Bearbarian? No, I really shouldn't. So yeah, a burning bear Pokemon would be what I wanted with a little bit of tiefling demonics added into it. Karlach was the true MVP of the playthrough. I went full Farbarian for my Karlach, which I thought was really cool and unique till I saw 8 billion different people saying how strong Furrow Build Barbarian was. And yeah, it is. But it was fun to feel strong, especially once I got that legendary Trident. Karlach's actual story is one I feel like isn't over yet, but did make me a bit sad in a way. But, you know, to me Karlach feels like a big sister, and I really enjoyed having that sort of character by my side in the game. And hey, getting revenge on Gortash with Karlach was one of the highlights of the game, even if it was a bit bittersweet. Bittersweet is a word I'd use for Karlach's story quite a bit, and most other characters depending on how you play them. So I wanted this almost Ursaring-like bear with a big smile, much more welcoming and happy than Ursaring, just like how Karlach is, but this bear would have some flames flowing off of it. I wanted to play up the muscly aspect in some way to show up those Karlach muscles, so I went a bit Incineroar with it, giving it this flaming abs pattern to the chest. Although firefighting would have fit, I definitely did not want to go there, and instead gave it the steel type as, you know, the infernal engine and steel all pumping through that rippling body of hers. Infernus, the Scorch Pokemon, a steel and fire type. Ancient tales speak of Infernus once being a pure fire type, till a duplicitous trainer used to deal with a devil to transform all Infernus into a steel type menace. Infernus constantly emit flames from all over their body. Touching one leads to serious burns or worse, if Infernus gets too mad. An enraged Infernus becomes cloaked in flames and lose most of their rational thinking. Despite their rage, Infernus can be quite sweet, and some who can control their flames love to give hugs. They also use this as a battle tactic, bear hugging enemies while on fire to severely burn them. Infernus have the abilities Flame Body, and a new ability called Bearbarian, where Infernus becomes stronger when hit with a critical hit or half HP, raising all stats and becoming immune to fire type attack. For Karlach's team, let's start with Infernus, then let's get some thick firefighting energy in here. I went with Ambor as it felt the most fitting for a Barbarian. Then I went with RIVERRRRRR, quite fitting to have a steel engine Pokemon with poison in its typing, as that's exactly the feeling with Karlach. Next we have Tinkaton, all the fun of a big barbarian weapon with a mix of kind of a fun and cute Pokemon. Karlach would just love that. And finally I chose a Colossal. It kind of has big fiery mama energy, much like Karlach, and the Cols work so well with Infernal Engine imagery.
That large, fleshy nose of yours looks like a mistake. Better is an opinion, but mine is certainly more economical, disciplined, dignified.
This one is probably going to be the most silly of them, as I know the Githyanki are sort of space alien-like things, but to me they'll always feel like frogs. So yeah, I wanted Lae'zel to feel a bit like some kind of fully kitted out toxic croak with sharp nail-like weapons and a big inflatable tongue that works like a mace. I didn't really use Lae'zel much in my playthrough, I just don't like the GIF much, and the other characters just made me too attached to them all instead. Although the Githyanki seem super strong as a race with all their wonderful magical gubbins and noseless energy. But in the end, I did do Lae'zel's quest fully and felt quite satisfied with where the story went and the glory that she got from it. And I'm just here to say Vlaakith's a loser, all our homies hate Vlaakith. But yeah, I continue with the exact hairstyle as I felt the top of the head was a bit bare, but giving it large head baubles actually gave it a great design and made it feel a bit more like a warrior, and I can imagine the jiggle physics in-game would actually be kind of interesting. Colours were hard as I wanted to strike that balance between it being too yellow or too green and get that perfect Githyanki colour that's in the middle of the road. Amphazel, the Arsenal Pokemon, a fighting and steel type. Amphazel are born as natural fighters using their highly evolved talons like daggers and hopping around on powerful legs. Their tongue once was used to catch prey with its sticky film, but is now evolved to be expanded with air to become a powerful tongue bludgeon. If prey are knocked out too quickly, then Amphazel leaves in disappointment, allowing the prey to grow stronger. They pride strength first in all things and will abandon their trainer if they don't prove themselves to be a match for Amphazel. They will even battle their fellow Pokemon to try and strengthen them. Amphazel have the abilities Sheer Force and Pressure. Alright, time for Lae'zel's team. Let's start with Amphazel, and they'll go for a full team of warrior Pokemon. I think a combo works perfectly here, as well as Phalanx. We got the no retreat bros here. I'm going to give her a Charizard as well. I mean, a GIF needs those big red dragons. And what's a swords person without good old Aegislash? And finally, I think either Cypher or Cleaver. Cypher almost looks like a GIF as well, so that's fitting.
You licked a dead spider. Dead spider. You licked it. That is something that happened.
Stop licking the damn thing!
Alright, hear me out. Is it just me or does Gale sound like that one guy from the IT crowd?
What is it?
This, Jen, is the internet.
The whole internet.
Yep.
Stop licking the damn thing!
Gale was my go-to wizard in the game, and even though I was a warlock myself, you just need that versatility. Not to mention, Gale has a really interesting story that threads into the main story really well, even if I need to shove a magical shoe into his mouth every 8 seconds. Turning Gale into a Pokemon was rough, but I had a wonderful idea. Gale has Tara, the wonderful Tressum, so it'd just be perfect to turn him into a very fancy Tressum. Gale has glorious hair, so I did end up giving the Pokemon a very silly and fancy hairdo. The main thing I wanted to add into the design was this sort of explosive orb that's been shoved into Gale, as an almost Torracat looking orb hanging off the front. The back of the tail for Gale is actually like a bit of a quarterstaff, or I guess wizard staff in this case. Maybe it spins around and fires spells out of the tail instead. I definitely got a lot of Sassy Cat inspiration from Meowscarada for this one. I really feel like Gale has genuine kindness, but just a splash of sass. Well, in my ending there wasn't any sass, but I've seen what can happen. I've seen. Tressid, the magical Pokemon, a psychic and fairy type. Tressid are widely known as wizard assistants thanks to their natural and magical affinity. They have the innate ability to tell when an item contains magical essence, although Tressid loves to chew on them due to eating magical essence. The orb in Tressid's chest contains powerful magic, capable of great destruction if used. This is at the detriment of Tressid themselves, even leading to the utter destruction of whole towns. Wizard cloaks containing anti-magic energy are crafted from the shed fur of Tressid, and due to the rarity of Tressid themselves, this becomes an incredibly lucrative business if you can catch a Tressid. Tressid has the new ability Spell Slots, where it increases the strength of this Pokemon's moves based on the PP of the move, doing more damage the lower the base PP of the move. Gale's team starts with Tressid. For a connection to Mistra, I'm going to go with Hatteran, the magical witch Pokemon. And a regular Slowking is a stand-in for Elminster. A Delphox is our other premier witch Pokemon. And for our final two Pokemon, I'm going to choose Klefki as it works as this sort of magic item, sentient item stand-in, as well as the Vault of Sorcerous Sundries. And Ditto. Gale loves creating copies of himself, and also no need to waste a spell slot on Polymorphs on Ditto to turn it into a Tyrantrum.
In that case, I've got just one thing to say. Meow.
Next, let's do Will, our little puppy. Listen, Mizora can get it. But still, I want to protect Will and all of his demonness now. This was one of the hardest to figure out, like, what animal is best for him. I ended up choosing a dragon, which, yes, is very high fantasy, but I think being the protector of Baldur's Gate works great for a dragon for many reasons. Many spoilerific reasons. I wanted to make it a sort of large spike dragon, plenty of sort of special attacker energy and the dragon, but I wanted to give it these big long sharp claws in front to work as a sort of stand-in for the rapier that Will uses. That first. I used Will later in the game for his story, and because I was already playing as a warlock, I changed into a druid. No real reason, I just found making a saber-tooth Will was a really silly idea, and the fact that druids are my favorite class. I use Drudigan as a reference here. It's not the kindest looking dragon, but it has that sort of jagged feel I wanted from it. The pose I wanted it to be in that pose Will does at the start, if he was a giant spiky dragon, I guess. It came out a bit pompous, but Will is prideful as well, so it works. Didn't really get to show much of the Mizora in the design, but I don't think that's something Will would really actually want anyway. Eldrake, the Pact Pokemon, a Steel and Dragon type. Eldrake is seldom seen, but are usually noble creatures that protect people and Pokemon. Large cities are protected by Eldrake with the top elite knights. Eldrake have powerful diamond-hard front claws that can pierce and slice, but also have a powerful breath attack as strong as Hellfire. Eldrake have lost the power of their wings, but are more than happy to bound along with swift strides. Their claws are able to find purchase in most environments, leading to Eldrake living in caves high above in mountains. Making a pact with an Eldrake will empower you and Eldrake with a mysterious energy. Eldrake has a new ability called Pact Magic, which halves the PP of all special type moves but boosts their damage. Alright, team time for Will. Let's start with Eldrake, of course. And now time for a knightly team, so I'm starting with Sirfetch'd and Gallade as well as Ceruledge, as that almost feels like a Pact of the Blade Warlock. Next, let's get Corviknight. I mean, a Knight in Ravenguard? Heck yeah! And finally, let's get our last Knight Pokemon with Chestnut, partially because I love it and he deserves more.
A hand? Anyone?
Alright, now time for the most spoileriest one, the Dark Urge. Which would be confusing, right? This is a custom character. Well, time to run if you don't want spoilers in 3, 2, 1. And here it is, the actual Pokemon design is based off the Slayer form. This horrifying transformation actually ended up being a great Pokemon, and while it isn't based off any animal and is more like a literal Pokemonification of the design, it turned out great. I haven't actually played the Dark Urge properly. I played a co-op game with someone, so I saw all the horrible things, and when I played it, I was too much of a good boy, so I went against the urges, so no special things for me. I love the design of the Slayer form, the weird three-pronged mouth, the 4 arms and hands with feet with kind of skin that goes around the bones itself almost. It's all very morbid in a cool way and translates well into a Pokemon surprisingly. I ended up going in a legendary design spin for this one, and I think that works well with what happens with the Dark Urge storyline and how powerful the Slayer form is itself. Dirge, the Slayer Pokemon, are fighting and Dark type. A myth once passed around was that Dirge was a human warlord that wiped out entire armies single-handedly, and their blood loss transformed them into the Pokemon we see today. Massive cults are set up all to Dirge as an attempt to try and summon the Pokemon and capture their power. Dirge have phenomenal strength in each of their 4 arms and the speed to back it up. Not many are fully prepared to go up against this Pokemon alone. It could easily lift up a Wailord and throw it far away. It is a ruthless Pokemon that is quick to anger and will almost never act passively. Always have caution around this Pokemon. Dirge has a new ability called Bloodbath, where critical strikes cause a damage over time effect, occurring at the end of each turn for 1 to 5 turns. Alright, let's give the Dark Urge the most twisted evil team ever. Alright, let's start with Dirge, then add in a Houndoom and Tyranitar. You always see these being used by the evil teams in the Pokemon movies and shows. I'm going to choose the Zoroark as well, as it's kind of a very orange-coded, dark and deceptive Pokemon. Next to Hydreigon, which is literally just the angriest Pokemon ever. And finally I chose Grimmsnarl. It actually kind of gives me Slayer form and official Pokemon form anyway vibes. Alright, that's all the designs in the video. Whew. Tell me what you thought about the designs, and also comment what race and class you played in Baldur's Gate 3, if you played it. And please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't, as well as share the video around to all the Baldur's Gate 3 fans you know. Now I present this final award to Baldur's Gate 3 for my Game of the Year 2023, because I'm better than the Game Awards and I'd give the winners the time to talk. Well, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Stop licking the damn thing!